Hello, everybody, and it's time for UFC 220 picks. Before I get into that too deep, though, try to ignore any background noise that's coming in. The computer, I'm building a new computer, and for those of you who do not believe technology is sentient, as soon as I started thinking about that, just adjusting the card there a little bit, the old computer started making noises and deciding to basically give me the finger, it seems. So there is that. Let's talk about UFC 220 though in the meantime. The top of this card is fantastic. I am exceedingly looking forward to Ngannou, Miocic, and then can't complain about Uzdemir, Cormier, even if I think it's a bit of an easier fight to call, and one that isn't particularly intriguing to me. And if it ends up being intriguing, probably stands to tell that Cormier is on the downfall. So that's disappointing. And you've got Shane Burgos, Calvin Kattar. That's going to be an action-packed fight. So is Rob Font and Thomas Almeida. But neither of them feel like main card pay-per-view fights. And Gian Villante and Francois Barzola is a terrible fight that I am not looking forward to in any way. And the undercard, except for Gleison Tibau versus Islam Makachev, is pretty devoid of any real names or important fight. I guess Ortiz, Pantoja as well. But the depth of this card, not great. Feels like a boxing card without the prospect building, because a lot of the unknown fighters here, I don't see them as future contenders. Just trying to think of it. One of them who might be Brandon Davis might go kind of far. It's maybe something I've got, but Hassan, Hamasi, kind of established guys, Inge and Arce, or EJ and Arce, not really excited for anything they're going to do. Bassett's just an action fighter. Barzola is a Peruvian pioneer who might lead to some more fighters from that country, but that's about it. And then Tibau's aging out, and we talked about Makachev, Ortiz, and Pantoja. So yeah, it doesn't even really feel like a UFC, or it doesn't even feel like a boxing card. It just feels weak. With that being said, let's get into this. Islam Makachev, Gleison Tibau, very oddly positioned, opening up the Fight Pass portion of this card. Tibau has not fought in over a year due to a PED test. Getting older, he's 34 years old, which at lightweight is pretty old. And he is probably going to start having harder and harder times cutting weight, be more and more depleted. Cardio has always been a problem for him, and that's because of the massive weight cuts he does. He's a good takedown artist, good grappler. Really gave Habib Nurmagomedov a really difficult fight early in Nurmagomedov's run in the UFC. But I'm going to go with Makachev. He's pretty explosive. He has, honestly, an explosiveness that even Nurmagomedov doesn't really have. Though he's not the same takedown artist or really anything other than maybe being a nominally better technical striker than Nurmagomedov. I see this being close in the first round, even the second round being reasonably competitive, but I see Tibau gassing out and eventually getting kind of choked out. Not a technical submission sort of deal, but more of a he's really tired and Makachev takes advantage, because Makachev's got some good grip strength, and if Tibau is tired, I see him being able to take advantage of that. So I'm going with Makachev by submission in the third round. I could see it also going the distance and Makachev picking up a decision. But I'm not. I'm pretty certain that Tibau's best days are behind him. I think that same day or the earlier weigh-ins and so on are going to be harder for him to make things happen with. Enrique Barzola, Matt Bessette. I like Matt Bessette. I like watching him fight. Very aggressive fighter, but you can't really think too highly of his process because he's very offensive intensive. Very defensively lax. I see him probably getting taken down because he's very willing to go to the ground. And if Barzola's on top of him, I think Barzola can maintain that position. I think he has a little bit of a deeper game. I think he can make this happen. Bessette is just... I don't really know if he's UFC level. Like, his run in Bellator wasn't even all that impressive. So, we'll see. Dan Ige versus Julio Arce. Going with Arce here. He works at a pretty good pace, good volume, very composed fighter. EJ might actually have the higher upside, but I think is a more developing fighter at this point, and doesn't. I really don't think that he's at the stage where he can take someone like Arce and make them uncomfortable enough to actually pick up the victory. So I'm going with Arce. Not super interested in the fight, but it could be fun. I think they match up well in a way that should be a reasonably pleasing fight. If you hear me go quiet, it's I'm taking a beverage and just very dry right now. Dustin Ortiz, Alexander Pantoja. Pantoja is the one probably one would hope would win this fight because he's the fresh face to go against some ranked fighters, give some new matchups, whereas Ortiz has kind of fought the creme de la creme in the division, and in some cases come out on top, some cases not. But I'm going with Ortiz here. The way to beat Ortiz has been to traditionally be able to out-scramble him, and I don't believe Pantoja can. I believe Ortiz's boxing probably is good enough to match up with Pantoja on the feet, and he's a better wrestler and a better scrambler. So I see him being able to take this. The only thing that maybe concerns me is the Brandon Moreno fight that Ortiz got tapped out in. But Brandon Moreno has proven to be a sneakily good submission artist. So, yeah, I don't think so. I got to go with Ortiz. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, Sabah Homasi. I've broken this fight down before, and I don't really think particularly different of it now. Homasi's a bit better put together fighter, but Al Hassan is a physical specimen of destructive power. I'm going to go with Hassan via TKO in the first or second round. But Homasi probably has more to adjust on after the other fight. Comes from a bit of a better camp. Probably has a little bit higher fight IQ. Maybe he can do some things, but I got to go with Al Hassan. This, of course, being the run back of the fight that was controversially stopped by Herb Dean. Kyle Bochniak versus Brandon Davis. I'm going with Brandon Davis via a late TKO in this one. Bochniak is a very flawed fighter, and not flawed in a way that is even particularly exciting. Like, Davis is a flawed fighter, defensively not really all put together. Relies heavily on chin pace to carry him through things, and that's gonna have a ceiling at some point. But I think that ceiling's higher than Bochniak. Bochniak is very, very low volume in every way, very low activity in pretty much every phase of the game. And it's just not really a recipe for a lot of success. He's had some success in the UFC, I suppose. Lost to Jeremy Kennedy. He beat Enrique Barzola, who's early in the card, but lost to Charles Rosa as well. I'm going with Davis. I don't know. It's not necessarily even a fight that'll really tell us about either one. I think the flaws of both of these fighters are going to be there kind of regardless of what happens. And that's, it's a little disappointing. Rob Font, Thomas Almeida. All right, finally we're on a fight. I'm excited for this fight. This is going to be a really good fight. Almeida is kind of chinny. He's kind of easy to rock and hurt, but has amazing recuperative abilities. Very aggressive, very talented striker. Once he gets into the fight, past, say, the first 2 minutes, he becomes very dangerous. So if you're Cody Garbrandt and you can take him out before then, bully to you. But most people are not that. Jimmy Rivera did wind up a decision for him. Fought, coming off a loss to Pedro Munoz. Pedro Munoz is, striking-wise, a lot similar to Almeida. He's going to come forward, give you opportunities to hit him. And he couldn't put away Munoz, so I think he'll hurt Almeida in this fight, but I don't think he'll finish him. I think Almeida will be able to recover, be able to push a pace that I'm not entirely certain Font's able to keep up. And as much as I'm very bullish on Rob Font, I think he's got a nice mix of wrestling and kickboxing to him. I don't think he's going to deal with the kind of pressure that Almeida brings to the table very well. And I think Almeida will be able to break him. Probably take the second and third round after losing the first round and take a decision. So I'm going Thomas Almeida by decision. Francimar Barros, Gian Villante. Why God is this fight happening? Why? What is this fight supposed to do? In Gian Villante, you have a fantastic athletic specimen, NFL prospect, if I do recall correctly. Fantastic fighter over the course of very small increments of the fight. And I don't even mean like he's got a gas problem. I mean, he does have a gas problem, but he just has a fight IQ problem where he doesn't adjust at all, and it doesn't react to the fight really at all. Again, it's freaking annoying. On Barros' side, you have more fight IQ, more adaptability, for whatever that's worth. But you also have a very limited athletic ceiling that's very reliant on being able to control a guy and just be kind of bigger than him. And those don't apply against Gian Villante. So I'm going to go with Villante by a sloppy decision. Let's go with that. Shane Burgos, Calvin Kattar, my pick for fight of the night. This is going to be fantastic. Calvin Kattar won his UFC debut, but I think it says a little bit more about Andre Fili's weaknesses than it does about his strengths. Shane Burgos is a proper prospect, one that I didn't really call when he came in. I thought I don't know. I picked against him a couple times. Probably shouldn't have. And he's delivered, beating Thiago Trator, Charles Rosa, and Godofredo Pepe. Cater is a better striker than any of those guys, so this becomes a much more interesting fight. But I see Burgos being able to just kind of overwhelm him a bit. I think Cater is used to having some physical advantages that are not present in this fight. I think Burgos is a fantastic athlete, happens to have a very large reach, very large for featherweight. I got Burgos taking a unanimous decision here because Cater is very, very tough. And he should be able to handle it. Or he should be able to last, even though he's kind of hittable. Daniel Cormier, Volkan Oezdemir. Oh, I have not picked Volkan Oezdemir to win a single fight during his UFC run of beating Oven St. Pierre, Miocic Serkinov, and Jimmy Manoa. So take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt here. I've been wrong every time this man has fought. I'm going with Daniel Cormier. I think that he hasn't fought a takedown artist. Well, I know he hasn't fought a takedown artist the level of Cormier. You could argue he hasn't even fought a pressure striker the level of Cormier, who is a surprisingly good wrestle boxer. Oezdemir is a little too comfortable in the clinch because he traditionally hits really hard from there and has just kind of an awkward power that allows him to finish people there. So you might be a little bit more inclined to allow Cormier to hang out there, and that's a bad place to be with Daniel Cormier. I think Cormier will take him down. I think he will wear him out, and I think he will submit him in the third round. Probably be a rear naked choke. Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou. Stipe is not someone I'm picking to retain his title. Big fan of Stipe. Had him, big supporter of his coming up. Probably my second biggest find at heavyweight outside of Cain Velasquez. About who was going to be a big thing when they came into the UFC. Without what I thought was the appropriate level of hype. And I'm very happy that he took a title off of that. Great story, firefighter, hardworking man. Humble man in most regards, although I'm the best man on the planet. Not so humble, but still there. The problem is that as much as there are ways, in my opinion, to beat Francis Ngannou, I think that outfighting is probably an option against him. I think that blast doubles are probably an option against him. They're not really things that Stipe does very well. Despite his wrestling background, it's more snatch single legs and working chain takedowns than it is the blast double, for example. And his outside striking game, no, he likes to come forward, he likes to pressure, leaves a lot of openings, and we've seen that Stefan Struve was able to knock him out. He's a better fighter than he was when he fought Struve. Has a great deal more understanding of ranges and striking in general, but his chin isn't any better. And if Struve can knock you out, Francis Ngannou sure as hell can knock you out because he has power for days. We saw Alistair Overeem hurt Stipe, and if he hadn't have gone for a guillotine choke, we may have seen Ngannou versus Overeem for the title when Ngannou sent Overeem's head into orbit. So I'm going with Ngannou. I'm going to be cheering for Stipe because, he's big fan, but I can't ignore the fact that defensively he's a little suspect. He likes the pressure that can run him into power shots from Ngannou, who has a very good chin in his own right. And, Francis Ngannou is a scary guy. I can't think of a heavyweight who's been scarier really ever, like just purely scary. Like he's not the best heavyweight of all time. I would argue that Stipe is a better fighter and one that you could model success after, and Ngannou is not. But Ngannou, considering he still doesn't have a ton of recognizable coaching behind him, like it's scary what this kid could be. It really is. So Francis Ngannou, first maybe second round TK. I don't think this is going long. If it does go long, it is going to favor Stipe because he does have a style that he can keep up for, I think, I don't know about 5 rounds, but he can keep up later in the fight, whereas Ngannou will gas the way that he fights. That's just it's a side effect of how he fights, and it's part of what makes him so successful. But if you can survive it, you can take advantage of it. But I don't think Stipe will. So Francis Ngannou to be your new UFC heavyweight champion. On the Bellator card, I'll just throw it in there. I am taking Rory McDonald to beat Douglas Lima. I have got Michael Chandler over Gochi Yamamuchi. I have Rampage Jackson over Chael Sonnen in a fight that I could not care less about. Those are the I think those are the 3 fights that I'm really interested in. Let me just pull up the card real quick. Bellator 192. Georgie Karakarian versus Henry Corrales. That's gonna be a good fight. Actually, I'm taking Georgie in that one to pick up a submission probably. And Aaron Pico versus some can as we continue to try to get the Aaron Pico hype train going. And Aaron Pico will probably win. Let's go with that. So that is all for this weekend's MMA. I don't know. I still don't know what to feel about this card. So there you go.